Hey guys, welcome back to Jess and Reads Romance. I'm Jessin, and today I'm going to be doing my weekly wrap-up. This is the first week in March, so I didn't read a whole lot of books for the first week in March, but I really liked the majority of the books that I read for this week, so that's a really good sign. Really great way to kick off March, so let's jump into the books. Oh, actually, before we jump into the books, I actually put a note in my Airtable to remind me to talk about this because this is amazing news for myself and other fans of Lore Olympus. So I've talked about this in a couple other videos, most recently in my monthly wrap-up or one of my weekly videos for February. I love Lore Olympus. So Lore Olympus is a webtoons comic, and that means it's a serialized story. So there's weekly episodes that come out every single Saturday. And this is a Hades and Persephone retelling. It has modern flair, but also like ancient mythology, ancient times thrown in. So I know that this sounds weird, but like the realms of the gods, which are Olympus and the underworld, those are the two realms that we're constantly in, they're extremely modern. They have skyscrapers. Hades wears amazing suits. Persephone's mother, Demeter, actually has a whole company based on she has like an oats brand. It's like called Barley Oats, and Persephone's like the poster child, the face of the brand. Persephone goes to college. Hades has a lucrative business in gems and diamonds because that's actually he's also the god of gems, as well as being the god of like the dead. But anyway, when we go to the mortal realm, humans, they're in ancient times. So we're like in ancient Greece, and every time the gods go visit the mortals, they have to dress in ancient Greece attire. So I find that like very fascinating, very, very interesting. Justin, why are you mentioning Lore Olympus? Well, first of all, I really love the story. I think the Hades and Persephone romance is like on point. It is a slow burn. Oh my god, is it a slow burn, but I freaking love it. But it was recently announced that these episodes will be bundled into volumes, and so they will be books. And I have been waiting for this forever. I know a lot of webtoon comic makers, just like Let's Play, she will bundle the books herself and she sells those. But Rachel got a book deal, and so the first volume will include the first 25 episodes. And it's still going to be a thick-ass book, like only 25. Whenever you look at it, I think we have like 140-something episodes. Yeah, there is 149. Hello, focus. Yeah, 149 episodes available, and the first 25 is going to be in volume 1. But anyway, I'm so excited. I ordered the hardcover and the paperback because I am crazy. But yep, we knew this. I'm just so happy for Rachel. She's so amazing. I used to be subscribed to her Patreon, but she closed down the account because she found that she was a little too overwhelmed and couldn't continue doing Patreon, which it had NSFW content with Hades and Persephone, and I was like, oh my god. Like I originally became a patron for that content, but she also went over the episodes and did a voiceover and like talked about it and talked about her process. She also did things like she would video herself while she was doing a couple panels. That was super fun. I miss that. I miss all the Patreon content. I totally understand for her mental health, and she also has the most amazing Kiwi accent, and I love it. But I understand for mental health reasons where she had to pull back on that, and so I hope that she's doing better and focusing on whatever she wants to focus on. As long as we keep getting our episodes on Saturdays, I'm completely fine. Okay, so now for the books. I read Much Ado About You by Samantha Young. I did get an arc of this, and for some reason I did not list it as some of the arcs that I needed to read, and I don't always go back to NetGalley itself to go check. I have like a list of arcs that I'm like, these are the ones that you need to complete, and that one just fell off my radar. I don't know how I missed it, so I ended up buying the book, and I read that one recently, and it was actually really pretty cute. So I gave this book 4 stars. The heroine is Evie, and she's kind of like down on her luck. She hasn't really been dating in the past couple years. Her friend really encouraged her, you need to get back out there. So she joined a dating app. She found this guy that they've been talking for a couple weeks, and they decided to meet up for the very first time, and she ended up by getting stood up, and he almost ghosted her, but then it was like, I think you're looking for something more serious, and that's not what I'm looking for, so sorry about that. And she was just like, ugh, this is why I don't date. And she's in her early 30s. All of her friends are settling down. Even the friend who said that she was never had an interest in getting married or having kids, she recently found out that she was pregnant, and so she feels very left behind, and I could totally relate to that. Most of my friends are married and have kids. So I totally related to that. Then in her job, there was a last straw with her job. She was like an assistant editor and she got passed up for the promotion to editor since her boss was retiring for somebody who, and they decided to pass her up for a man who was like 23 or whatever. And she was like, that's complete bullshit. I want to pick up and just go on vacation. So she goes on vacation to a small town in England on the border between England and Scotland. And part of the deal, and apparently in the author's note in the back, this was a real thing that she came across. I swear the mail's being delivered right now. Oh, actually, there's a book that I ordered, the physical copy that I read this past week. That should be in the mail. I'm going to go grab that. Okay, I'm back. I got the goods. That book will be later. Let's finish talking about Much Ado About You. So the apartment that she ends up by renting comes with the deal that she is going to help run the bookstore, which is called Much Ado About Books, I believe. And Evie loves books and she constantly is referencing like Darcy and Lizzie. Sometimes I mind references to the generic classics that everybody talks about every time in their books. I totally get it. Everyone loves Pride and Prejudice. I love the movies a lot, so I totally get it, but sometimes that gets old. But anyway, she's really ecstatic about this prospect. So she is going to spend 4 weeks over there. She really meshes with the town. And the town is like very like small town vibes. Everyone goes to dinner at the local pub. There's a little bit of like Romeo and Juliet stuff going on in the background with some side characters. I really thought that they were going to save kind of that romance for another book and make it kind of like a series where we focus on different couples in this town. But some of those romances get resolved in this book, which I found interesting. But she meets this guy while she's just like strolling along. She sees this Great Dane and she's like, oh, it looks exactly like the Great Dane that I had whenever I was a kid. And she actually saves the Great Dane from being like run over on the road. And of course, the owner is very thankful and grateful, and his name is Roan, and they have like an instant connection. But Evie's like, I've sworn off men after getting back into the dating scene once and being burned, because she wants to focus on herself, and I totally understand that. But sometimes the plot line of I have this intense connection with this person, but oh, I've sworn off love, so I have to push them away, doesn't always work for me. And I was a little bit frustrated with Evie's character because of this, because she was so attracted to Roan and they spent all their time together. And so I was like, girl, why are you fighting this so hard? One of the things that's another conflict is that obviously she's on vacation. And so the whole plan is to go back into Chicago, go back to her life. And so that's a conflict that does come into play later, but I felt like it could have carried the workload of main conflict and not the I've sworn off men and this is why I'm pushing him away. But it ended up by being a really cute kind of like friends to lovers romance. And I really like the vibe of the town, how she really fit in with all of them. I also found it, I know that this actually happens. I know that a lot of people don't cook and they get takeout, but that is like so different from my experience because we cook all the time and takeout's like expensive if you do it all the time. So I cook a lot and I couldn't imagine doing takeout. But like Evie, they're always eating like breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the inn, or like maybe a sandwich here or there, but like they're always eating at the pub, always. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of eating out. Again, this was a really cute story, but I will get into spoilers really briefly, so spoiler warning. The conflict didn't work too well with me, which is why this is a 4-star and not a 5-star, because it was a lie of omission, a white lie. When Evie meets Roan, she point blank tells him the type of guys that she's completely uninterested in dating. And she has a couple of these things that she's like, I will never date these guys. One of them is dating a guy that's younger than her. And I really dislike this stereotype that like if people are young, that automatically means that they're immature. And I think that no matter your age, the levels of maturity vary. And so she was saying I would never date anyone in their mid-20s because I'm in my early 30s and I'm always more mature than guys who are in their mid-20s. Guess what? How old Roan is? Roan is like 25. And so he keeps this to himself. But he's like this huge lumberjack looking dude, so he doesn't look 25. Whenever you slap a beard on a man too, it automatically ages them, but like in a really sexy way. So they seem more mature. So she never guesses that he's that young. Another one is she doesn't want to marry somebody who comes from money, because she dated one guy one time, and she had dated a younger guy, had a horrible experience, but she dated one guy one time who had money and made her feel like kind of bad that she didn't have money, and she didn't like feeling that way. And I totally get that. I wouldn't like that either, but saying that everybody who has money or does not have money wouldn't be like understanding about your situation or wouldn't put those pressures on you, I think that was such a superficial reason for not dating those types of men. It's like such a general category to be like, I will never date a man who's younger than me. I will never date a man who has more money than me or whatever, or like grew up with money. That doesn't automatically mean that you're not compatible. But Roan decides to keep the fact that he is younger than her, and he definitely comes from money because his parents are a baron and a baroness of the county, and he's very rich. He's into agriculture and also real estate and stuff like that, so he's extremely rich, and that is the point of conflict. She accepts his proposal. They start planning a life together. She finds out he has been trying to tell her, and every single time they were interrupted, I almost wanted to scream because I was like, I know what's coming. He's trying to tell her, he's trying to inform her, and like, I totally understand. She was like, you had multiple opportunities whenever we first met to tell me, and he was like, you literally told me you wouldn't give me a shot. And so I understood his perspective as well, and he really did try to tell her. She packs up and leaves for Chicago. When she originally was like, I'm marrying this man, I'm staying, she was like, never mind, you lied to me, I don't even know you, and like, I don't know anyone from this town because you all lied to me. And she goes to Chicago for like a week, and then she realizes after talking to her best friend, who was completely unsupportive for the majority of the book because she was being very selfish, like, but I'm having a baby and I want my best friend here. Who cares if you found the love of your life? Like, I want you here. I thought that was very selfish of her. And then she talks to her mom, who she had a minor conflict with throughout the novel. And finally, those two convince her that she overreacted and that he is a man that is worth it and worth forgiving. So she goes back, and then everything's fine. And she forgives everyone. So that was like within the very last part of the book, and it felt rushed because she was like, pack up my life, go back to the States for like a week, and then she's like, never mind, I changed my mind, let's go back to England. But I really like the small-timey vibes of this book, so that's why it got a full 4 stars, not like a 3 or 3.5. The next book I read was Vanquish, which is the second book in Pam Godwin's Deliver series. I recently read the first book, Deliver, which, what? That was crazy. Vanquish is my favorite so far because I read the first 3. I have the first 3 as a package deal on audio, and that package of audiobooks is called Deliver Us, and then the second package of 3 is called like From Evil. I haven't gotten those yet, but Vanquish is one of my favorites, and there is a slight spoiler. I'm going to try to talk around it, but this book does deal with like villainous characters, and some characters who were villains in previous book become like the heroes and the heroines of the next books. So I'm not going to talk about who the hero and the heroine are right away. I'll put up a spoiler tag once I do say their names. So trigger warning for stalking, sex trafficking, kidnapping, captive, like this definitely has a lot of those things. The heroine also suffers from agoraphobia and OCD, like real OCD tendencies. I'm not talking about like, I'm so neat and I have to have everything in order type of OCD. I'm talking about like actual OCD disorders that could become harmful if you don't manage those things. And I really love reading about characters that have mental health issues that they're struggling with, and that's like a battle that they're fighting it out with. And so I really love the heroine and her journey. It was like so freaking amazing. But this story is bonkers. All these stories are completely like bonkers, and it's like, Pam Godwin, how are you going to pull it together? Because these characters kind of acting heinously. Ugh. I absolutely love it. But the hero ends up by kidnapping the heroine, keeping her captive. But he does become a big part of like her healing process, crazily enough. I know it sounds very strange. Kept her captive. You actually kidnapped, stalked this woman, kidnapped her, but you become a part of her healing. Like, how does that even happen? But like, honestly, yeah, it's still my favorite book in the series that I've read. So spoiler warning, the hero is Van, who was a pretty big villain in the first book, and it's a spoiler as well because there was a moment in the book that it seems like Van dies because Liv shoots him, and it seems like he dies, but then we do get a hint toward the end of Deliver that he wasn't actually dead, that he somehow did survive, and he did transfer a lot of money that they had earned to live, like $8 million, I want to say, or maybe $6 million. And so she split it between her and the other captives that she had ended up by freeing. So that was really cool. In the beginning of the book, Van is actually spying and stalking Liv and Joshua, who are moved into this nice little neighborhood in a house, and he like spies on them through their window because they have like no window coverings. But his whole purpose is that he needs to convince Liv that he would be a good father figure for their child, who was raised by the man who was pulling their strings in Deliver. That was a twist that we found out in Deliver. So while Van is spying on Liv, he sees what he thinks is an abandoned house right next to her. But actually, this house belongs to the heroine, who is agoraphobic, so she doesn't take care of any of the outside maintenance of her house, and all the windows are like closed shut. And so he breaks into that house to kind of set up shop to bug Liv's house so that he can figure out a way to approach Liv about being a part of their daughter Livana's life, and then discovers that there's this weirdo woman in there. And I say weirdo because she's not actually weird, but this is like Van's thoughts, like what kind of crazy is this, you know? But then he becomes deeply fascinated by Amber because she is a beauty queen and she has like awards, but there's obviously so many things that she's gone through in her life that exacerbated her tendencies for OCD, and then in the past couple years she has become agoraphobic. So wow, it was an amazing ride. I absolutely loved it. 5 stars for this book. 5 stars for this book. Oh, I totally forgot. I had one DNF this week. I got the audio for If the Duke Demands by Anna Harrington, and it's the first book in the Capturing the Carlyles series, and I'm wondering if you see this family in other series of hers, because it seems like a well-established family just from the very first chapters of the book, If the Duke Demands. But I discovered this book. I've never read anything by Anna Harrington. This book was suggested multiple times on Patreon as a book we should review, and it never got picked. I really love the cover. I decided to read it on my own, and I got the audiobook for it. I very quickly DNF'd it. I really love the beginning of this book because our heroine Miranda is actually in love with one of the hero's younger brothers, Robert, and the hero Sebastian is the Duke. And he unexpectedly came into the dukedom whenever his father had a horse riding accident and he passed away suddenly. He carries a bit of guilt from that, which influences his decisions. He feels like he has to marry the right person, definitely regardless of love. And one night, there's a masquerade ball. Miranda's plan is to seduce Robert and keep herself masked and hopefully get Robert to see her as not this little girl that he's been knowing for his whole life, because she is an orphan and she grew up on the grounds of their estate because I think her aunt and uncle were the caretakers of the dukedom's estate. And so they all played together as children. And Robert is very affectionate towards Miranda, but as like a little sister type of way, they all kind of feel that way about her. So she like bribed a footman, be like, hey, which one's Robert's room? She goes to the room, and when a masked man opens the door, she immediately assumes it's Robert. We get multiple clues that it's actually not Robert, that it's the older brother, Sebastian, the Duke. And so they come extremely close to actually sleeping together, but she calls out his name in passion whenever he's like, I think he's at second base right now. And she calls out Robert's name, and he was like, what? Pulls down his mask, and she's like, Sebastian! And he's like, who are you? Miranda, what are you doing? So anyway, I liked the beginning of that. I really did. I liked the beginning of it. But Miranda has such an interesting opinion of Sebastian. She doesn't like him at all. She thinks that Robert's the better man. But when we meet Sebastian's younger brothers, they're like fuckboys. They're horrible sounding, but apparently it's okay because Robert's like the money guy, and like he gets really serious whenever he's talking about the ducal finances. But other than that, he's just all about like banging women, partying, drinking. And I'm just like, so what does Miranda see in Robert? I'm so confused. And he's obsessed with another woman. Like Miranda's like standing there as he's talking about another woman that he plans on courting, plans on proposing. Sebastian feels a little bad for her, and he tries to like soften the blow to Miranda, and eventually he becomes kind of enamored with Miranda. And she's supposed to be very quirky, but she comes off as extremely young. And I think that was a thing that was the disconnect between me and the heroine. She's supposed to be like this lively, enigmatic young girl, well, not young girl, woman, who balances out Sebastian's serious tendencies because he has become extremely serious since assuming the dukedom, because he feels like he owes it to his father, who he wasn't there for his last breaths, and he wasn't able to talk to his dad before he died, even though his dad asked for him. He was out cavorting and, you know, with women or whatever. And so now he's become very straight-laced. And it's supposed to, like, Miranda's supposed to balance out Sebastian, but she seems very flighty, and I don't like her as a character. So this is one of those rare instances where I'm like, I'm really not enjoying the book in the way that Sebastian's like, I'm really into Miranda, but like I know I have to marry somebody like Lady Jane. Lady Jane is perfect. She's cool, calm, and collected, and I have no attraction to her. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this story. I was positive that I was DNFing. I decided to go read some reviews by people who didn't love the book, which is 3 and under, who had some issues with it, and I found this review. This review was posted in 2017 by Con, first of her name, Mother of Bunnies, and it was so comical to read this review. It was a 1-star review, which I don't always trust, like 1 stars, because that's like some really harsh criticism, but she made it really funny in her review. And another part of the story that I didn't mention is that their mother decides to sponsor Miranda because she doesn't have the funds to have a season, and so that like forces the proximity with Sebastian and Miranda. But in Con's review, it says act whatever, because this is kind of toward the middle of the book, and it says, Miranda, oh my god, we're in town. I'm gonna flitter about being an unpredictable little lady, and everyone will love me because I'm just so fucking special and delightful. Then it says Trent, which is the Duke, Sebastian, and it says, God, she's hot. How did I not realize she was so hot? But whatever, I'm here to court the lovely and cool-headed Lady Jane. And it says Lady Jane. Ta. Then it says Robert, who Miranda's in love with. Oh my god, it's Lady Diana. She of the hair of color of spun golden candy floss upon stick of diamonds. Miranda, my heart is broken. But damn, Trent is so cute. How did I not notice how cute he is? And then this one was the kicker, and it says Trent, our hero. Oh god, I know I'm supposed to help you be getting my brother, but damn girl, you're hot. Let me put my hands under the skirt in front of all these people out of play. Let's hope nobody sees this and you won't get ruined, because I sure as hell ain't marrying you. Apparently, they start sleeping together. Trent tells Miranda multiple times, like, I'll never be able to marry you. I have to marry somebody like Lady Diana. But Miranda sleeps with him thinking that she can change his mind, but then is completely disappointed whenever he doesn't change his mind and is very hurt by it. So I hate that storyline so much. I don't like whenever a hero's very clear, like, if I sleep with you, I'm not marrying you. And the heroine's like, well, I'm just gonna do it because but I'm gonna expect that he's gonna propose to me anyway. Of course, they end up together. I didn't finish the book. I DNF'd that one. But anyway, I just thought that review was quite humorous. The next book that I read was Marriage and Murder by Penny Reed. This is the book that was delivered just as I was filming this video. I'm really glad that I got the paperback copy of it. So, I did a review last year of Engagements and Espionage, and this whole book is the Solving for Pi series, and this is a spinoff from my favorite couple in the Winston series, Cletus and Jennifer. They have a complete love story in Beard Science. I absolutely adore it, but they're like one of my favorite characters, and Penny Reed sometimes does little short snippets of scenes that she'll send out in her newsletter and include in like short stories and like anthologies and stuff, and I was so desperate to have more Cletus and Jennifer. There is slight spoilers if you have not read the Winston series, because the events in these books take place between book 4, which is Beard in Mind, and Dr. Strangebeard. There is a 5-year time jump between book 4 and book 5. When I read book 5, there was lots of events that were referenced that everybody was like freaking out about. There was a murder. Somebody got murdered, and we found out in Dr. Strangebeard, and we were like, oh my god, what happened? And Penny Reed's like, I'm going to circle back to all those scenes, and it's going to be told through Cletus and Jennifer's point of view. So I was really excited to get like a cozy mystery series. Engagements and Espionage kind of disappointed me. I didn't really love it. There was a kind of Jen and Cletus weren't really on the same page for a lot of Engagements and Espionage. Cletus was like, I really want to spend time with Jennifer, and she's constantly busy with the bakery. She's supposed to have balance in her life now, and every time they tried to get sexy, every time they tried to have sex, they're always interrupted, and it happened throughout the whole entire book. Thankfully, that is not the case for Marriage and Murder. There's so much hot, sexy times. Holy shit, Yes, it's so on point. Cletus is such a good dirty talker, and he's just like, wow. I think it might be the steamiest book that Penny Reed has written. But then the mystery, the murder happens. So if you've not read the Winston Brothers series and you don't want to be spoiled with who dies, I'm not going to say like who killed him or anything in the book, but if you haven't read the Winston series and you plan on reading it, then spoilers. So in Dr. Strangebeard, we find out that Kip Sylvester, which is Jennifer's horrible father, dies, and he's murdered, and her mother is on the run. And she's with Repo, which is a biker. And we do get like a cute little Christmas novel with Diana and Repo. So the murder actually happens during Cletus and Jennifer's engagement party. And it's like a whodunit. And like, I honestly did not predict who actually murdered him. I will just throw that out there. I had so many people, I'm like, oh, this person probably did it. Oh, this person. And it was like, I like the way that Penny Reed laid it out. It was really amazing. And yeah, freaking amazing. I love this book so much, 5 stars. Then I finally finished The Sorcerer's Lady by Deborah Deere. I planned on reading this for Pharaoh Feb because it's a historical fantasy. It has some fantasy elements, some time travel, some fairy magic going on. Very reminiscent of Kara Marie Moning's Highlander series, like that type of historical fantasy. And I really freaking loved this book up to a point. I love the concept of Laura, our heroine, having this kind of kooky aunt that was like, oh, I just discovered in like my aunt, I was looking at my ancestry and apparently I'm descended from like these women who had some powers. Let's try an incantation to like find you your soulmate, because the person that you're currently is courting you, he's not for you. Like, I just don't feel like he doesn't respect you, and you definitely need to find your soulmate. So she does this spell, and this ancient Irish Viking appears in her living room. And he's descended from the Tuatha De Danann. Can't pronounce that. It's a fairly common word for the Fae. I'll put it right here. That he is half fairy and half Viking, and he knows that Laura is his soulmate. But the problem that I had with this book is Connor is absolutely so devoted to Laura, and Laura's reasons why she can't be in love with Connor are so flimsy. And at the end, the conflict, I was extremely annoyed with her for you to push him away. And then we also had kind of a semi-romance with her aunt and her father. Not related. It was her mother's younger sister who's always been in love with Laura's father. But like, Laura's father was kind of forced to marry the older sister, not the younger sister. Anyway, that's a whole side story. Something similar happens between the aunt and the father that is a reflection of the conflict between Connor and Laura. And like her response where she felt so bad for the aunt and she was like, oh, father will come around. I'm like, you just did the same thing that your dad did to your Aunt Sophie. You just did the same thing to Connor. How can you be so blind? And that happened like literally an hour ago. Anyway, she wasn't very self-aware. So I didn't really enjoy the book in the end as a whole. Concept, loved it. Book as a whole, not so much. Laura was a very annoying heroine. So I gave this book 3 stars. And lastly, I read Disclaim, which was the 3rd book in Pam Godwin's series Deliver. This one had a definite different vibe. The heroine Camilla, I'm not going to go into her backstory that much because it's kind of spoilers for the 1st and 2nd book, but Camilla is a character that we're familiar with, and she is dead set on tracking down sex trafficking rings and bringing them down and holding the cartels that are responsible for trafficking women responsible. And so she plans on going undercover basically. She does end up by running into a man that was like kind of her childhood sweetheart. They definitely had like a teenage romance, but there are some tragic circumstances. Camilla was kidnapped and sold into the sex trafficking world, and she hasn't seen Matthias in years and years and years, and so their paths kind of cross, and this is a dark romance. Again, the hero is made out to be this villain, and it's like, Pam, how are you going to pull this off? How are you going to make me understand this hero and sympathize with this hero when he's doing such horrible things? Like, I don't understand. And the twists in this book just make so much sense, and it was just so good. And just like, Pam Godwin is an author that I trust to write some dark romance that I will get on board with. But again, I'm not recommending this series to anybody who is at all uncomfortable with dark romance, because it is some really dark stuff. And from what I hear from Jennifer, who is way ahead of me, I think she's on book 7, every book gets darker. So there is that. But I really enjoyed this book. I give it 4.5 stars. So if I had to rank the 3 books, it would be Vanquish, then I think I would put Deliver. Deliver I also gave 4.5 stars, but I would do Vanquish, Deliver, and then Disclaim. But Disclaim is also 4.5 stars. So all high ratings, all very interesting dark romances that if you're a lover of dark romance, I would recommend. If you don't like dark romance, then obviously don't read these. All right, guys, that's all that I have for the first week in March. It was a very exciting time. I have some weekend reading plans. So you should be seeing a vlog next week. If all goes well, you should be seeing a vlog. And then the very next week is the start of the Kindle Clear Out readathon. I'm so excited for this readathon. I've already done my TBR, and I'll be vlogging that as well. If you like this video, go to big thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure that you subscribe to get notified at any future videos that I do. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, life's better with little HEA. Bye, guys.